Obstetric fistula is arguably the most devastating and most serious of all childbirth complications. An obstetric fistula is a hole between the vagina and rectum or bladder, which is caused by prolonged obstructed labor, leaving a woman incontinent of urine or feces, or sometimes both.
Fistula is caused when very young women whose physiology, whose bodies are not fully matured, and they get pregnant. And when they get pregnant, because the birth canal is small and maybe the presenting part of the baby, usually the head, is too big for that part to for the baby to pass through the pathway, and in the process you will get the head stuck on the bones in front. So once that is the case, then you will get what we call in medicine necrosis. Some of the tissues will die, and because the tissues will die, the bladder of the woman, because when a woman is pregnant, and particularly if the urine is in there, the bladder will tend to get big because it will swell up with the urine. So when it stands long on the pubis, on the bone there, then the tissues die, and as a result, the urine will be now passing from the bladder of the woman, and this will come to the external part, and that's what exactly I was trying to describe as fistula. It is when you have a passage between the bladder of the woman and then the outside genital part, and sometimes you can even get fistulas relating to the anus.
Fistula is divided, let me first start it. It's divided into two. We have rectovaginal fistula and vesicovaginal fistula. The rectovaginal fistula is caused due to childbearing, and the vesicovaginal fistula also is caused due to childbearing. How can it occur? The rectovaginal fistula is when there is prolonged labor. Let's say even for 24 hours, or let's say for 4 days, 72 hours. And this baby head is bigger than the pelvic. So when this baby's head rests on top of the rectum continuously for more than 3 to 4 days, this will cease the blood flow through the muscles. And when the blood flow stops through the muscles, what will happen? It will cause breakage. And when that breakage occurs, if the breakage occurs inside the rectum, this lady will start to leak stool from the vagina, no more from the rectum. The stool will come directly now from the vagina because the baby's fetal head was pressing down to the rectum. And again, if this baby gets stuck on top of the bladder for more than 3 days, then that particular area will shut off blood supply, and this also will cause breakage. And when breakage occurs, what you will expect? Leaking. So there will be leaking urine from up the bladder down to the vagina.
According to the UNFPA, there are almost 2 million women globally suffering with obstetric fistula, and over 50,000 cases develop almost every year.
UNFPA works to support and improve women's health and rights. And also one of our key transformative goals is the reduction of preventable maternal mortality. Now, fistula is what we call a maternal morbidity. It is a neglected problem in that women don't die from maternal issues, but they rather suffer lifelong consequences. And therefore, in our efforts to improve women's health and rights, fistula is one of the key areas that we are working in as UNFPA.
In Sierra Leone, before 2012, for every woman who gets treated, at least 5 or more go without. This number got curtailed drastically by the intervention of HICAL and Aberdeen Women's Center. Obstetric fistula is both preventable and treatable if labor in women are provided with adequate and better facilities timely. This silent killer could be prevented. Another way to prevent obstetric fistula is to prevent teenage pregnancy and early marriage.
In the area of prevention, what we're doing is fighting against the causes of fistula. And this a major area is ending child marriage, because fistula is caused mainly because you have young women who are not ready for childbirth. They get into obstructed labor and then fistula results. So in prevention, we are attacking the social and cultural issues which lead to fistula, the underlying issues, the root causes. And therefore, we are looking at how we can end child marriage, prevent teenage pregnancies, and through campaigns, through programs addressing adolescent girls.
Government has brought free quality education. For that to succeed, we need to ensure that adolescent pregnancy and child marriage is ripped off. For the free quality education to succeed, we need to ensure that girls are not sexually abused, they are not sexually penetrated, they are not raped. We need to ensure that we bring to the barest minimum the level of domestic violence. So all of these compounded challenges, if we address them through community engagement, because as a ministry, our core value is let us do the preventive aspect of it so that we don't respond to some of these issues.
However, when one's fistula is developed, the only remedy is surgical treatment. The Abadi Women's Center is the only hospital providing surgical treatment for women suffering from obstetric fistula in the country.
In 2019, to date, from January to now, we have treated 92 patients. But at the minute, we have a fistula camp where we are going to treat 55 more patients. So overall, this year, we will be treating over 150 patients. In 2018, we did 202 fistula surgeries. We have the capacity to do up to 500 surgeries here a year, but we usually only see around 200 to 250 surgeries a year.
But with all these, one may be tempted to ask how the Abadi Women's Center gets funded.
We were first run here by Mercy Ships. Then in 2008, Mercy Ships left and we were taken over by the Freedom from Fistula Foundation, which is a UK charity from Scotland. Now this charity funds the Aberdeen Women's Centre since 2008 to now. They fund us around 99% of our funds come from this one very small charity in the UK. Apart from this, we get a small amount of money from UNFPA, as they are the UN agency that is in charge of fistula.
According to the Ministry of Social Welfare, Gender and Children's Affairs, any girl who doesn't reach the age of 18 cannot give consent to get married. This also goes for the Child Rights Act. However, the Registration of Customary Marriage and Divorce Act 2009 says contrary. It gives the right to the parents to consent marriage for their children below 18 years. With these discrepancies, it's apparent the Law Reform Commission has a lot to do in order to harmonize these laws.
But even with the age 16 for customary marriage is also very confusing. It was very confusing. We are trying to harmonize that now. Very confusing because there's an act in it that says as long as the parents consent, and that's difficult to fight with.
The children are not up to 18 and parental consent can be sought for those that are about 16. So what we have done in collaboration with the Law Reform Commission is to review all of those marriage-related laws to ensure that we have a single age for entering into marriage, which is 18. So we have done some work with Law Reform Commission with support from UNICEF, UNFPA, UN Women, Save the Children, and other partners. We have done some work, including Plan International as well. We have done some work and we have reviewed those laws, and now there is a draft bill talking about the abolition of child marriage in Sierra Leone. So once that bill gets to Parliament and is passed, we will not be talking about child marriage anymore in this country. Whoever does it will face the full penalties of the law.
HICAL is a non-governmental organization that was established by Haja Awatuye 20 years ago, just after the 11 years brutal civil war that caused massive destruction not only to our women and children, but to the country as a whole. Sierra Leone was faced with too many challenges regarding health and education. Based on this, HICAL was established to gear towards the vulnerable with special reference to young people, girls and women. A nursery school was first established, later a primary school, followed by a junior secondary school, a vocational institute, and later a senior secondary school. Considering the challenges girls go through adolescence period like early marriage, teenage pregnancy, HIV, reproductive health, sex rights in the school system, institutional delivery, family planning, and lots of other issues. Haikal decided to go strongly into the area of adolescent health and women's health, and that's how it came about obstetric fistula, women in different communities.
Haikal, as I mentioned, started almost 20 years ago after the war. When we returned home, we had so many orphans and vulnerable children and women troubled that I decided to establish a school for orphans and vulnerable girls. And as it continued, when the school system was built, then I decided to go into the health system because I found that we have so many women that are troubled by lack of proper medical facilities. Women in their childbearing age, teenagers to be specific, and even older women, married women, had problems. And I decided to go into seeing how best I could help them to improve the health system in our country and the lives of these vulnerable women of Sierra Leone.
Francis Jimmy K is one of Haikal's outreach coordinator for the East and Southern region. He explained to us how they normally get in contact with fistula patients across Sierra Leone.
I work now Haikal as field.
I am the field officer for Haikal here in Bo City. My job is to reach the unreached communities, different talk shows, just to sensitize people about obstetric fistula. I also work closely with the traditional birth attendants, TBAs, in identifying fistula patients they know in their communities. Because of the stigmatization these patients faced, it is difficult for them to come out when some of these campaigns are launched.
They come on board because of them, they are ashamed because of the stigma where they get.
Hawasisi is the storekeeper, and she is responsible for registering all fistula patients that are taken to Haikal.
I'm the storekeeper, and at the same time again I coordinate the activities.
I'm the storekeeper and at the same time coordinating the activities of all fistula patients here in Haikal. I am tasked with the responsibility to register all fistula patients brought by our coordinators. I am responsible to make sure they all have their dignitary kits.
All the activities that are Haikal basically perform on a big head.
When these women are taken to Haikal by their coordinators, they will spend few weeks there before referral is done to the Aberdeen Women's Center for their repairs. After a successful surgery, they will send them back to Haikal in Bo City, where they will be trained with different technical and vocational skills like garage dyeing, tailoring, soap making, needlework, agriculture, and lots of other skills. Every year after this training, a graduation process is organized where these survivors will be presented with certificates, and each of these women will receive a package of 1 million yuans as a startup kit to explore in their various communities the skills they have learned at Haikal.
We have referred them to the treatment centers. They've gone through their surgery. They do come back to us to be rehabilitated and reintegrated. Rehabilitation processes taking place. Counseling, psychosocial counseling taking place. They are trained in literacy and numeracy, and they are empowered in different technical and vocational programs that keeps them occupied. And after they have completed these programs, they are sent back into their community to be reintegrated with skills in their hands and something to hold on to, we call money, for them to establish themselves and have a life of their own. So basically, those are the two key areas that we work in. Referrals to treatment centers, rehabilitation and reintegration. Those two are our strength as far as fistula is concerned.
In the fight against fistula, there are 3 stages: the prevention, treatment, and reintegration. Dr. King talks about their priority areas.
UNFPA supports the prevention, treatment and reintegration of women for fistula. In the area of prevention, what we're doing is fighting against the causes of fistula. And this a major area is ending child marriage. Because fistula is caused mainly because you have young women who are not ready for childbirth, they get into obstructed labor, and then fistula results. So in prevention, we are attacking the social and cultural issues which lead to fistula, the underlying issues, the root causes. And therefore, we are looking at how we can end child marriage, prevent teenage pregnancies, and through campaigns, through programs addressing adolescent girls. In treatment, we are one of the only agencies that funds the repair, surgical repairs of fistula clients in the country. And that's not enough for us. Once a woman has undergone a surgical repair, because before when she had the fistula, she was isolated, what we do is we work to ensure that we reintegrate them into society. And this is where HICAL comes in as one of the only organizations that works to build girls and women's capacity, give them skills, and then support them to be reintegrated into society.
These are some of the technical and vocational institute tutors I interviewed, and they were enthusiastic in sharing with us their experience with their students.
I am the tutor for the tailoring department. I've been here for 11 years.
Well, I don't take 11 years now.
The needlework tutor for the fistula patients here in ICAL. I have been here. This is what I call needlework. I only use needle and wool to do this work. My name is Katimu Kamara. I am the soap making tutor, and I have been working here for 14 years. This soap is the most important thing to them, considering their health challenges.
The crowd they can because they always need that every day I need to use.
These are survivors coming from the northern region to participate in this year's graduation.
Welcome them. This night
now the patient they will the come for graduate. That man Awoka.
Okay. How are you, my brother?
It's one of
in the first place, there were patients and we don't get the fistula.
Those people you just saw me with are survivors of fistula, and we are here to grace this all-important occasion, the fistula graduation. For a couple of months, they were habited at the HICAL hostels in Makboroka. They are all trained with different skills like soap making, dyeing, needlework, tailoring, agriculture, and lots of other skills. So this is the time for their certification. The HICAL Foundation will be using these graduates as ambassadors to reach out to other fistula patients who are feeling shy to come out for treatment.
Me say we don't get that same problem, I don't get the fistula, but HICAL don't take me. They don't go mend me, I don't well. The way they mend me, I don't well. They not just left me, so they learn me some skills.
When obstetric fistula patients are brought to HICAL hostel in Bo City, they normally go through a psychosocial counseling. That process will help them to recover from their traumatized and ostracized status.
I done there now for 4 years.
I've been here for 4 years. We are dealing with traumatized and emotionally sick people from the labor they have gone through, which has eventually led to the incontinence of urine and sometimes even feces. So quite often, these people are stigmatized in their various communities. So when they are brought here, it's my responsibility to talk to them, counsel them, make them feel belong and useful in society by restoring their hope.
Tell them say all is not lost, really, and they hope say yes, it will be well, since they don't reach HICAL.
Because of the discrimination these fistula patients are faced with, when accessing government hospitals, the CEO of Haikal, Haja Awatuye, has decided to build a new health facility, a new technical and vocational institute, and a new hostel that will host up to 100 patients.
I have just built a hostel that will host 100 fistula patients, a technical and vocational school, and a clinic. Because over the years, I have come to realize that these women are discriminated against when they go to government hospitals, and people don't want to treat them or care for them. And I took it upon myself to fund it so they will have a decent place to come to, a decent place where they can be trained, and a decent clinic where they can be taken care of temporarily until the treatment center comes to collect them. And the government of Sierra Leone has given me support by bringing in nurses, a midwife, and a CHO to run that clinic, which has helped tremendously, or which will continue to help to ease the pain of the fistula patient.
But before these newly built facilities, there was a community health clinic which patients were accessing during the Ebola outbreak.
We dey operate now. Me dey actually for oversee the overall running.
I'm tasked with the responsibility to oversee the running of the entire center. I have a staff of about 11 nurses. My duty here is to see general and under 5 patients, according to the free health service. The treatment for under 5 patients is free, so also for lactating mothers and pregnant women.
Under 5 picking there free. The lactating mothers there, they are free, as well as pregnant women.
And relationship with the fistula then, like where they don't do the operation when they come.
My relationship with the fistula patients after they have undergone their surgeries, we normally help them to dress their areas of operation. Just this morning, a pregnant fistula survivor was brought here, whose pregnancy was aborted due to these STIs. So most times these patients will come with different complaints like malaria and the likes, and we normally treat them.
Different cases of malaria, other things they help to treat them.
This was the old hostel. Life is more better in their newly built home compared to this one. They were using the Haikal Senior Secondary School classrooms for their technical and vocational training, thanks to this new project. When fistula patients are brought to Haikal Foundation, one of the first 2 people of contact is the storekeeper. She is tasked with the responsibility to register all patients that are taken to Haikal. She took us around the store.
Just like I tell you, when the patient don't come.
Like I was saying, when a patient is brought in, after her registration, I'll make sure I hand her a bag of dignity kits that will contain all these items in the store.
After which now that patient say, I dey pack in bag. That bag then a dignity kit set there inside. As you can see, these are some of the things then because the yard almost round. This one are the toy. This one are bathing soap. We get toothbrush. We get countryman when for infection, so the person will even in case where the person is scratch in the rubber now because you know say somebody where they leak you, they always get there have infection there. We even get again vaccines, so they supply give them the same. This one are the pampers, the diapers because you know say na woman the way they leak urine, so we they give them pampers. We not feel like they put that pieces they always so the pampers they can use as you can see. This are the pampers they can get. We can even get the again pants. These are some of the many ones and this what we only supply with them.
It goes without saying that midwife training is one key component that needs urgent attention if the fight against obstetric fistula is to succeed in Sierra Leone.
Midwifery training is one of the things the Ministry of Health has worked so much on. Because like I said before, fistula is as a result of, you can say, poor access to midwifery, right? So because of that, government moved away from just the midwifery training that was just in Freetown. There's one for a long time now, over the last 5-7 years in McKinney. And we have ramified, we have spread out on regional basis. So now there's a midwifery school in Bo. You will also know that those nurses that are trained to do delivery, the institutions have been spread out regionally, and you find that now they are doing some amount of midwifery training for SSHN in McKinney, other than the midwifery school itself, in the university there. You find that in Bo, you find that in Kenema, and of course you find also the MCHs, maternal child health aides, who also will train and will have upgraded their curricula so that they can deliver very well women, particularly adolescents, young women, so that they don't get fistula. So we have been on the right course in relation to prevention, because this is about prevention actually. The woman would have been, her life would have been destroyed with fistula. So we try not to reach that point, and therefore midwifery training has been one of the key strategies, and you can find now midwifery training schools in all the regions of this country.
There should be more training of midwives in country by the Ministry of Health or other partners, so that midwives and other medical professionals know what fistula is and know that when they see it, they can refer to the Aberdeen Women's Centre. Also, if midwives are trained more, are more skilled, then if people have safer and quicker births, fistula will not occur. Fistula is preventable and it's very curable. Fistula should not happen. Fistula is not automatic from giving birth. So this training of midwives and other medical professionals would really help eradicate fistula.
People believe that the high increase of fistula in the country is caused by teenage pregnancy and early marriage. But by looking at this old woman, one may tend to give it a rethink, or perhaps even question the accessibility of health facilities in the country. Aissatou Brema is the oldest fistula woman ever to be in the books of both the Aberdeen Women's Centre and Haikal in Sierra Leone. She has been suffering in silence for over 40 years.
I was in my early teens in Kenema when my father died. I got married to this man as the first wife. I gave birth to 2 children. It was during my 3rd delivery I encountered this problem. As usual, I was taken to the Bondo Bush, the outskirts of Kenema, where I was forced to give birth by some Soes. I was in that bush for over 5 days, forcing me to drink their concoction. They beat me up thoroughly, accusing me of not wanting to give birth. My mouth was filled with blood after screaming heavily for help. But no one dares to enter that Bondo bush. One old woman brought me some herbs in a calabash, which they forced me to drink. A few minutes later, they forced the baby out of me. I was unconscious. Later, when I regained my consciousness, I noticed the entire place is soaked and it smells like urine. I was so confused. Everyone despised me, calling me a witch. So I returned to my husband in Kenema. But the provocation and intimidation from my 2 mates was too much. I personally married those 2 ladies for my husband, and now they have turned against me. I said to myself, to make matters worse, my husband told me he doesn't want to see me in his house. I was driven out of the house, a house which I built with my husband, just the 2 of us. So I was devastated till the war broke up in Kenema. Due to the stigmatization, I used to spend time in the bush during the day and returned to the village late at night to sleep. So one night I heard people talking about the treatment of fistula, but I didn't take it serious. In fact, I thought they were provoking me. So I had to turn off the lamp in my room so they couldn't notice me. Last year, one Haikal coordinator was directed to me. He went to see me in the bush and explained about Haikal and what it does. He asked to take me to Haikal regional office in Bo City and I agreed. We went to both spend some weeks there and later take me to Aberdeen Women's Center, where I had successful surgery. I say thanks to Adra Hawatue and the management of Aberdeen Women's Center and all other staffs of ICAR.
I thank you, Mami Aja. They are Aberdeen women, they people there. Oh, then they are when we there, I will not suffer.
With all the help and interest ICAL is showing to these ostracized women, one may wonder how the organization gets funding.
UNFPA has been funding us all along, and Islamic Development Bank also comes in, and we're hoping and praying that they will come in. And once in a while, even myself, I go the extra mile to make a major contribution, personal contribution, to see how well I can also help to alleviate the pain of these women. And we've been advocating to the government to see if they can also come in and see if they can support us and go into supporting fistula full time and considering it seriously, and we hope and pray that between now and 2020 the government of Sierra Leone will come in and support us fully.
Having fistula is not the end of the road. One can recover from fistula as long as the patient is being identified and diagnosed. She then has 90% chances to be cured and can also be reintegrated back into their communities. Juma Kane and Hawa John Bull are living testimonies that obstetric fistula is curable and there is life after fistula. The baby in Juma's hand is one of the surviving twins she gave birth a year after her obstetric fistula surgery was done.
My name is Juma Kane. I am a Sierra Leonean who live in Liberia. I got fistula when I went to deliver my first baby. God bless Jimmy K. Helped me access HiCal here in Botan. I spent some days in this hostel and later taken to the Aberdeen Women's Center, where I had a successful surgery. I went to my village without graduating that year. Again, I got pregnant, but safely gave birth to twins. I lost the one baby. I am here safe and sound with one surviving child.
A multi-sectorial approach is highly needed in this fight if fistula is to be controlled or curtailed. The Ministry of Social Welfare, Gender and Children's Affairs, the Ministry of Health and Rural Development Planning, the Ministry of Youth Affairs, the Ministry of Basic and Senior Secondary School Education, all these are key players in addressing the issue of obstetric fistula.
Three important things government is trying to do in the awareness raising to prevent fistula. In terms of awareness raising, is advise people don't get pregnant when you are very young. Early marriages, government is against early marriages. We are promoting family planning. We are getting all the commodities available so that they don't get pregnant in the first place. And thirdly, when you get pregnant and it's about to deliver, during your pregnancy, go for antenatal care, go for all the services, and when your time is ready for delivery, go to government hospitals. So these are the three key areas that government supports sensitization on, and in addition to identifying already those who would have had fistula. Mark you, there are a lot of people out there, so once they have fistula, we need to also sensitize them to come out for rehabilitation.
We go through social mobilization in communities. We go through raising awareness by using jingles, doing radio discussions, going in communities, using advocates, using workers, field workers that know the communities. We also make use of the traditional birth attendants that we call TBAs, because those are the people that know where these women are. Since most of these women do not believe in institutional delivery, they go through the TBAs. So we go through the TBAs in the communities to help us search for these women. And the jingles, the dramas, all of these things compiled together helps us to look out for these women in the community so we can refer them to the treatment centers.
In all the interviews I did with the fistula champions, it is apparent that the traditional birth attendants, TBAs, are the major contributors to obstetric fistula in the communities. They consider themselves to be community doctors. The handling of obstetric fistula patients is another thing worth talking about, especially when they are up for repairs.
It will be very challenging for us if they wanted to go for their fistula surgery, because there are some procedures we need to do that you need to stand for yourself, like exercising the enema before going for the surgery. We have to do this enema procedure to get rid of all the feces from the stomach, so that during the process of doing the surgery, feces will not come out, since the surgery is being done directly at the vagina. But because of the drop food, some of them are almost paralyzed. So it takes a very long time. They will be admitted for a very long time for them to be recovered from this paralysis. It's very difficult for us to do our enema procedure. Why? Because this is a procedure that you use the rubber tubing, insert it through the anus, ask the patient to give you a very strong contraction with the anus. But because of the muscles are no longer responding, it will be very difficult for them to contract the anus.
In as much as obstetric fistula is curable, we still have few cases that are unrepairable. Some have done multiple operations, but yet they don't just get cured. This 16-year-old girl is a victim of no repairable obstetric fistula.
I am from Suegrima Chiefdom, Pujeong. I was 13 years when I fell in love with this boy. By then I was in class 6. Just after a few months, my mother noticed I was pregnant. So I later named the person that impregnated me. At first, the boy was there for me. But as the pregnancy develops, he gradually loses interest in me. I couldn't access a health facility due to poverty.
Another related case is the home mother, Yatala Hai. She has opted to serve as a volunteer for her colleagues' fistula patients. She has been here for over 3 years with stipend given to her every month.
In JSS2, I was raped by an unknown man who impregnated me. Eventually, I was sent to my mother in one of the villages in Pujeong district to nurse the pregnancy. The only health facility that was around is 10 kilometers away from my village, so accessing it was almost impossible considering the poor road network. When it's time for me to deliver, I was taken to nearby Bundubush. After several days in labor, I was taken to Pujeong Government Hospital by hammock. I noticed incontinence of urine on my bed. I have done 3 surgeries. I won't say they are not successful because I am far better compared to how I was 3 years ago.
Amidst all these challenges for these women, they still have their human rights, which deserves an attention also. Brema Abdullah Sharif, a former human rights commissioner, explained about the rights to health for these women.
So people suffering from fistula face a lot of human rights challenges. Rights to health is a fundamental human right that people must enjoy, especially women. In fact, one of the key characteristics of human rights is that human rights are inalienable, which means when you enjoy human rights, you should enjoy rights from a holistic perspective. Unfortunately, people living with fistula do not enjoy holistic human rights. Because whilst they may have food, they are abandoned by their families. This creates stigma and it demoralizes them. And when somebody is demoralized, it becomes very difficult for the person to claim any other human rights. How do we get this? How do we solve this? First, the state has to take responsibility. The right to health is something that people must enjoy, but more so the vulnerable class in our community, especially women. In fact, those suffering from fistula even become more vulnerable because of their status and their condition. Those who have the opportunity to access health facilities sometimes face a lot of challenges, especially from some of the health professionals. There are some health professionals that do not give respect to people who access the hospitals for medical attention, especially from fistula. They are so unprofessional that they treat them with disrespect. As a result, when some leave hospital premises, they do not ever access this. So they continue to live in this damp life. They continue to live withdrawn, some to the point of suffering. In fact, sometimes in human rights, we refer to them as silent victims. So the states need to understand that there is a class of people that are suffering. People suffering from fistula are a category of people that the state really needs to pay attention to. Because they are citizens, they are part of the world, they have their rights, they are protected by our national and international laws.
The CEO of ICAL, Haja Awatuye, talks about the challenges they are facing with these women.
The challenges that we have faced with is going through the country, all over the country, in search of fistula patients, and in very, very difficult communities or hard to reach communities. These women are found in places where very few people want to be seen or found. The road network in Sierra Leone is very, very poor. The women are found in communities where there's abject poverty, very little means of transportation, medical facilities inaccessible. Inaccessibility is more of a challenge for us to get to these women than anything else. And most of the time when you go, you find them in poor health conditions. They have to be transported to the hostel and be treated for a while before the treatment centers come in to collect them. And even when they go to the treatment center, they are taken care of medically until they are strong enough to be operated upon.
Over 95% of patients and survivors are interviewed are faced with rejection from family members, friends, and even the community. Unlike this young lady whose husband vowed to be with her till she regains her health.
My name is Moses Rory. My wife was pregnant and it's time for labor. We were later transferred to Daru, but still she couldn't deliver. So they later made further referral to the Kenema Government Hospital, where an operation was made. She eventually lost the baby.
These are the fistula survivors for this year. They are rehearsing on how to welcome attendants on the day of graduation. This is a fistula graduation. As always, dignitaries are invited and statements are made from different representatives. As always, Fistula graduation at Haikal is one of the happiest moments for Haja Awa Toure, the founder and CEO of Haikal Foundation. For over a decade, she has dedicated her time to help this marginalized group of people in Sierra Leone.
So the Minister of Health, Ifodea, when we talk about international organization, UNFPA, Ifodea, now in called now they give the money for campus support for making ministry of the government of Sierra Leone for making supervising. We want to tell them all thank you.
Dr. Alpha Uri is the Minister of Health and Sanitation. His ministry is the backbone for all health-related issues in the country. He is here to grace this all-important occasion.
This is a certificate of life, a certificate for giving you a second life again. This is a certificate where they tell every government about the wrong things that really happen in the country state. This is a certificate where they say His Excellency will bring it here to those matters to you. Your new direction must look out for women.
The story of Obstetric Fistula will never complete without the mentioning of UNFPA. This is the UN agency that is responsible to look after obstetric fistula patients across the world.
It is such a pleasure always to come for this occasion. But most importantly, and why I'm really pleased to partner with Hakia, is the reintegration. Because you can treat somebody and then when they have nowhere to go, they remain as outcasts, they remain marginalized, they remain vulnerable. So I'm really, really pleased that we have continued to support this program. And today we see women who have not only been treated, but are also now reintegrated into society. So please, we really must give Hakia a big round of applause.
As she is dancing, you can feel the ecstasy in her. She is one of the obstetric fistula survivors. She is happy her dignity has been restored again. The entire event was climaxed with the presentation of certificates to over 60 graduates, with each of them receiving an envelope of 1 million euros to start their lives in their various communities. One cannot overemphasize the level of poverty these women are dwelling on. I had on camera Bendu Samai, and she just received her envelope of 1 million yuans during the fistula graduation earlier today.
My name is Bendu Samai. I am from Pujang district. I appreciate God for what He has done in my life, especially restoring my dignity again. Thanks to UNFPA and special thanks to Haja Awa Toure, not forgetting the Aberdeen Women's Center and Francis Jimmy K. Since my childhood days, I have never set eyes on such money except today.
So I don't get money. The money I don't say, I don't grab, I don't reach, I don't hold that kind of money.
With all this concerted and tremendous efforts from Haikal Foundation, UNFPA, the Aberdeen Women's Center, the Ministry of Health and Sanitation, the Ministry of Social Welfare, Gender and Children's Affairs, and all other ministries and development agencies are boasting of, there is this broad-based question I almost asked all of them that I have on camera. How do they foresee the fight against fistula in the next 10 to 20 years?
My fight against fistula, the next 10 to 20 years, is proper medical facilities, the capacity, increase the capacity of staff, nurses, midwives. The quality care is our concern in this country. Proper medical care, nurses, proper health system, proper facilities, good doctors, more midwives, quality nurses. These are the things that will make a difference in the quality. And with all of those things put in place, fistula may be eradicated.
We can only win if we continue to work together as we are doing, continue with the line ministries coming together, continue to reach out to districts and communities, to reach community leaders, to reach the people, for them to understand that child marriage should not be tolerated. Then yes, we can win the battle. So I am hopeful for the next 10 years in that we already have high-level support for the advocacy and the campaign against the underlying causes of fistula.
I think it looks good. I think the future is bright here for fistula in Sierra Leone. I think as long as the Ministry of Health and other partners, including HICAL and UNFPA, and people really focus on how we can prevent fistula occurring, be that through education or community sensitization or training of midwives. If there is a focus on how to prevent fistula occurring, then the future for fistula looks very good. We know at the minute that it's estimated there's around 8,000 cases of fistula in Sierra Leone.